Ah, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Nice to have a Tuesday. It's a good Tuesday. And today we're doing Hawaii, the State of Health, with the State Department of Health, namely Maile Sakamoto. And she is, among other things, I know she plays many roles there, but she is, among other things, the Performance Improvement Manager of the State Department of Health. Welcome to the show, Maile.
Thank you.
So I didn't know that you were a potter until a minute ago.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important that we define you. So let's define you, at least in terms of being a potter. Tell us about your potting career.
Okay, well, I've been with the Hawaii Potters Guild, which is my community, for about 15 years, I think, and do mostly hand building and sculptural type things now. But the studio is involved with a lot of community type events, and we just had one called Empty Bowl, where all the chefs and potters get together, and the money raised went to Hawaii Meals on Wheels. And we raised $50,000 for them.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
How big is the Potters Guild?
It's not that many, well, there's, I'd say, maybe 120 or something, but they're there at all different times, so.
Yeah.
And then we have an education program where the teachers go out into some of the schools that are in the underserved areas, where kids don't have art classes in their schools, and they give art classes, and it gives the kids another way to sort of express themselves.
Well, people who express themselves are healthier people, I think. I don't know what it is, and whether it be in the fine arts, including pottery, or in the performing arts, or in any kind of creative art. The opportunity to express yourself helps you define yourself. And if you have a self-image that is defined, you're a healthier person. It's simple.
And it's also a really good way of communicating. Yeah. And so that's why I think, any kind of sector that offers any kind of communication skills to it should be encouraged and should be mixed up into the bigger picture.
Yeah, I've been playing with that notion, actually. And it has to do with the program we're doing on Thursday, which I'll take a moment to talk about. The program is called, technically, Public Spaces in Hawaii. How can we regain them if we've lost them, and preserve them, in any event going forward? And then we changed the name as Where Have All the Public Spaces Gone? Long time paving. And the idea is, we need public spaces in the state, and we don't have enough, and we don't respect them enough. We're losing them. And we're abandoning them. Even if they still exist, they're not being used. And so this is a problem for public health in its own way.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's a problem for democracy in general, because, and this is not going to surprise you, social media is not the answer to human communication. Right. Human communication is like this. It's face-to-face. And that goes back a long way, and it's critical to our survival as a community. You know all this.
Couldn't agree with you more.
So that's why these talk shows are so interesting. Really, it's stimulating to be able to talk to somebody face-to-face for 45 minutes. It's tonic, it's healthy for everybody involved, and they never forget. You never forget,
Yeah, that's probably going to be true.
Okay, well, taking all of that, I never met an artist I didn't like, by the way.
They're great people.
Taking all of that, let's talk about the Department of Health. Okay, it's big, right? It's one of the biggest
huge,
departments in terms of personnel. Tell us how big it is.
3,000 people, and we also have, in many health departments, it will just be mostly what we call our health resources section. It will be the disease outbreak, it will be the public health nursing, it will be the chronic health. But our Department of Health also has environmental health, and we have behavioral health, which are sometimes separate departments in other states. So we have this really huge and diverse program or department that we have to, try and attend all these things that it encompasses.
So, it's not an accident that Hawaii is a healthy state, healthier than other states. Part of it has to do, I'm just doing logic here, part of it has to do with the Department of Health, how robust it is. And then you have a question of public policy that goes back to territorial days, to maybe the monarchical days. Namely that, the government, whoever was in charge, was concerned about public health. And for that reason, we put a fair amount of emphasis on the department and the way the department achieves public health. And I'd just like to offer a thought on that. When I first started practicing, I doubt I ever told you this, My first case was about the Maui Quarantine Fund. And the Maui Quarantine Fund was a way to avoid the bubonic plague, which was, the vector was a rat, and the merchants on what's the name of the street in Maui?
Front Street, Lahaina?
Front Street in Lahaina. They were concerned that there would be bubonic plague one day, and it would decimate their commercial community. And so they chipped in for a fund, and they put $10,000 collectively in this fund in the year 1910 or so. Okay, and this was intended to help community health in the event of any outbreak of the bubonic plague with all the ships that came and went. And that undoubtedly was based on the fact that Hawaii had had some serious health problems, because in the 50 years prior to that, a lot of Hawaiians had died from Western diseases, and they had they were vulnerable in every way, and they died. And so people, I think it's part of a culture point that people wanted to take preventative steps, to avoid outbreaks of disease, probably based on what happened with the ships and the Hawaiians back in 1830, 40, 50. And so this was an example of that. The interesting part of the case, by the way, was that there never was bubonic plague in Maui or anywhere in the islands. And the $10,000 was invested carefully by the trustees of the Maui Quarantine Fund. And by the time I started practicing, which was in 1971, okay,
So is your money still there?
it was hundreds of thousands of dollars, because they never spent a penny, okay? And they couldn't spend a penny because it was really unlikely in 1971 that there would be an outbreak of bubonic plague in Hawaii. So what to do? Well, there's a doctrine in trust law called si pre, which is Latin, which means nearby, or it's French rather, nearby. And so the idea is the court has equitable power to change the provisions of a trust to something nearby, some other purpose nearby. So what happened is we went to court and we said, look, there's no bubonic plague, but how about disease in general? How about, all kinds of, infectious diseases that might affect people in Maui? And then you'll have a purpose, and you can actually spend the money if anything happens. And the court agreed, and we had it changed under this wonderful doctrine of si pre. That's the end of my story.
Well, then my question is that money still there?
I'm sure it is still there.
Oh, because there's a lot of talking about prevention, with the invasive species and all the different things that are coming in with that, because so many pests are coming in
right
now,
it's the
and
same
you don't
thing.
know. I mean, the whalers also brought mosquitoes. Hawaii was mosquito-free before then.
And what a shame.
Yeah, so now look, the issues with dengue fever, West Nile virus, malaria, all these things that are connected to mosquitoes, which is also one of our programs.
Well, that's another element too, that our forefathers who established, the Department of Health and sort of conceptualized how it would deal with all these things, understood that Hawaii was a destination, and it had global connection, and therefore any disease from anywhere could pop up here, and that has happened from time to time.
Well, we have so many different ecosystems here. I mean, Hawaii is just amazing. We have deserts, we have rainforests, we have coastal dunes, we have all kinds of things. So any kind of pest that comes from someplace else can find a home here that it would like.
If not in one place, one part of the islands, then in another place in the part of the island.
So it's our environment was very welcoming, much.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, in many ways, I've learned this actually from you guys. In many ways, the Department of Health is the most important department we have, because it protects our lives and our society in general. I mean, an outbreak of infectious disease could wreck the place. And in an island, you have to be particularly careful because there's nowhere to go. And so the Department of Health is very important, and it's actually up to the task. It's very refined. Your track record is very good. Although I wish the regional biosafety lab had been built. I think you and I would both be happier if Dwayne Gubler and the medical school had been allowed to build that laboratory for the university. But hey, you can't have everything.
I'm not in charge.
No comment, we'll be fine. Okay, so then we know the general parameters of the Department of Health. Now, within the Department of Health, how do you execute the mission? How do you divide that workforce up in order to do what you have to do?
Well, there's so many different branches. Of course, it's such a huge department, and it covers so many different things. So actually, what I do, I'm funded with a federal grant from the Centers for Disease Control, and it was for an initiative called the National Public Health Improvement Initiative, and it was to look at ways to make the department work a little bit better, because the old style has been that you have these separate grants that fund just specific things, so everybody stays in kind of a silo. And the department, this branch won't ever work with this one, even though they might have some overlap, because that's just never been how it was in the past. But now things are really changing. There's a lot of crossover of programs. There's a lot of more partnerships with the communities. And so we have to look at how we can maybe start changing things within the department to do that.
It's a risk in government anyway, right, isn't it? But especially in an agency where everybody wants to help. You got all these funding organizations that want to help because they're dedicated to health of one kind or another, but they give the grant to a little wee pocket here and a little wee pocket there. And as you say, everything is in a silo and everything operates separately, and it's very hard to coordinate that because the people in those silos are responding to the granting agency.
Exactly.
And so it becomes vertical, not horizontal.
Well, it's also vertical, and then the granting agencies are all on the East Coast and in Atlanta, and so their understanding of what our situations in Hawaii is not.
They see only a sliver of it.
Yeah, and usually, that when I tell them that we live on these islands, that our Department of Health is this big and it covers 6 islands, and it just almost doesn't click with it.
People have a lot of trouble, including, you'd like to think that the people who administer federal grants know the territory, but my experience has been that they don't know the territory, not out here. They don't know the nature of an island state. They don't know the sociology. They just don't understand, and they try to find a parallel on the mainland, and they can't. And sometimes it's a real problem, because if you're a granting agency or granting official and you say yes or no, you become, over a career, you become pretty self-important and powerful. And when you're ignorant, you don't even know how ignorant you are. Sorry I said that.
I wouldn't call them ignorant.
She's not agreeing with me.
I'm very lucky to have my CDC project officer lives here in Hawaii.
Oh, that's a good thing.
She really knows what the situation is. I feel like I'm so fortunate with that. But we were applying for one grant, and it was to do workshops on the neighbor islands, because a lot of times they don't get everything that Oahu gets. And they said, well, why is your budget for travel so high? I said, well, these are islands. We do have to fly.
We don't have a highway.
I said, we don't have roads or boats. And I heard someone in the background going, oh. I thought,
People really don't understand.
It's like a tourist destination for them.
Yeah. My wife and I, early in our marriage, we took a trip to Canada, and we brought our car to Canada. We shipped it, okay? and people, more than once, they would ask us, how did you get your car from Hawaii to Canada? They didn't know about shipping cars. They had no idea. It's so interesting how people just can't make cognition on island life, you know.
And so when I talk about, our water situation here, I mean, it's very crucial. We need to really look out for our water, because if we mess it up here, then
what are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do? But when you live on the mainland, it's like, well,
sure, we'll find some other source. Yeah.
Or where are we going to put our garbage, or where?
Yeah.
So it's really fascinating.
It's fascinating, but the whole discussion, this whole differentiation, that we're talking about, points out that we are responsible for our own fate. That we must find, the systems, the analyses, the tools, and to take care of ourselves. Because if we don't, we can't be sure that anybody else will.
Right.
And talking about water, we got to take care of ourselves. Talking about, the environment, we have to do it. Nobody's going to step in.
Right.
Yeah. But we have a break. And after this break, we're going to drill down on performance improvement management at the Department of Health and find out about how the horizontal process is going instead of the silo process. This is really important, and Maile's in the middle of it, and we'll be right back.
Aloha, my name is Maile Sakamoto, and I'm the host of the Empower Hour. If you're interested in health, nutrition, fitness, here on the island of Oahu, want to learn more about places to train at or different trainers available, then watch my show on Fridays at 3. We have a great time, and I hope that you'll come join us. Much aloha. Now go get swole.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island. I work in the ER there. But on Tuesday afternoons, I get to come and spend 45 minutes to an hour with Jay Fidell and the ThinkTech staff. They're terrific professionals. They help us to bring some of the leading cutting-edge topics here across our state to you. So you can join us at our show on healthcare in Hawaii to talk with leaders from across all the spectrum of health in our state, or you can join us for any other show where we talk about economic development or tourism or some really eclectic programs too. So really, we'd love to see you here on our show. Thanks for joining us and thanks for supporting us.
Okay, we're back. We're live. I'm Jay Fidell, happily here ensconced with Maile Sakamoto, who's the Performance Improvement Manager of the State Department of Health. And we're talking about performance improvement management in the Office of Planning, Policy, and Program Development at the State Department of Health. So we're sort of ramping up to that. So you have the silo problem. You have a large department of 3,000 people. You have to coordinate them to make efficiencies. And this would be the case in any large state or federal office. And the important thing, I think, is that it's happening, that there is coordination, and that, you know, we have performance improvement standards and management expectations, and that's great. So can you tell us how big your office is, Maile?
Well, I'm an office of one. The
Okay.
planning office has, you know, we have different programs in it, so I think there's about 5 of us now.
Okay, good, good.
Most of them are programs of one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the federal grant you spoke of before is all for this, because somebody in Washington recognizes that there's a benefit in coordinating all the various functions in a department like
Well,
this.
they did recognize that, and then Congress undid it.
Oh, how nice.
Yes. So, you know, I didn't have very much time to be able to turn around a department of 3,000 people.
Yeah.
But we're trying, you know, we're trying to
Trying,
get
okay.
some seeds and.
Well, it's a good project for our delegation, isn't it?
Yeah.
To see if they can't fix that, you know. I mean, and to get the grant renewed, right?
I don't think that it was a national grant, and so
It's just for Hawaii.
I don't think they'll do something that's just for Hawaii, but you never know.
Okay, well,
know. We
take
can
note,
find out.
take note.
Yeah.
Okay, let's examine now, let's examine. Tell us about the office and tell about its programs.
So what I do, so basically when I got here, I was looking at I did a lot of just going out and listening to staff and talking to them and seeing what were some of the things that they thought needed improving, because sometimes it doesn't go down that far. And it was really fascinating. You know, I think Department of Health is very lucky that we have some fabulous people that work there. And people that go into public health are very passionate about what they do. But they were also frustrated with this sort of disconnect, with kind of the lack of communication. And so it was like, okay, well, then what are things that we could do to help that out, to make that change? And one of the things that I heard was, well, you know, we don't really know about other parts of the department except for what we do. So I thought, well, okay, let's put together an orientation to the Department of Health for Department of Health staff when they come in. And it will talk about the different programs, the different administrations, so that you have an overview of what the department is and what they do. That's pretty.
I think this is what you meant by in-reach?
Yes.
Okay. So outreach is good, but you also need to match that with in-reach.
In-reach, and also for me, when I first started, it was like, well, what's public health? And when you're around a lot of public health professionals, you'll get, you know, these really long technical descriptions, but it's like for the layperson, it's like, what is public health? So we're doing something like that. You know, what is the difference between the medical model and the public health model? And then also just like you were talking about the history of public health in Hawaii, it's really fascinating. And I think that that's what sort of, you know, grounds us, connects us, that it's very special how Hawaii approached public health.
Yeah.
And so I think just starting with those 3 pieces for all of the staff gives you something to kind of, you know, hold on to.
Yeah.
And then moving, you know, teaching there are some other programs that staff requested. One was customer service. We deal with customers outside of the department. We deal with customers inside the department with some of the
What's a
administrative.
customer? I mean, a citizen, a member of the
Somebody
of the
who needs
community?
assistance and
Anyone who needs
who is
assistance is a
asking you
customer?
for.
I love that notion.
So
That does not permeate state government in Hawaii, Nay, you know that.
So it's a different way of thinking. But again, people would like to have some skills developed with this. And so we just did 3 trainings on the Big Island, and it was wonderful. It was really great. We had a fabulous instructor who used to work in our office. He's now working for Big Island County. But totally a local style training.
This is outreach.
This is inReach.
Still
It was to
inReach. We're
DOH
still
staff.
talking inReach.
It was to DOH
Okay,
staff.
so you're teaching the staff what the whole enchilada of the department is doing. You're trying to familiarize them with all of the various
Well,
functions.
this one was specific to customer service.
Customer
Yeah,
service.
it was just like some
So you're trying to
tips and
inculcate a
techniques.
notion of service.
Yeah, you're a public servant. Taxpayers pay
Oh,
your
God, that's invaluable.
for your position. So how do you develop that? But a lot of times, it's again, people are focused on their work. So these other things are not always, a high priority. But I think as we move into more of these partnerships, more of, mixing up, I call it tearing down the walls and mixing up the programs, that it's really important that we know how to kind of listen and respect each other.
Well, you've been sending me guests for this show, and I've been really enjoying them. But I would say every guest you've ever sent me has been oriented toward customer service, for sure.
Yeah, and they are. I think it's just some people want some skills development.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that it's good to remind people, it doesn't hurt every now and
So
again.
what was your background before you joined the department, Molly?
I have a degree in geography and art. And so
Art?
it's a
Okay,
different way.
We're back to pottery
Yeah.
now, aren't we?
So it's a different way of thinking, it's very, which is why I like this job, because it isn't specific. You really look at how things connect. And,
Yeah, and you bring people together that way.
so it's bright green.
Yes, well, there's always room for that. Okay, so have you reached the entire department with this?
Oh, no.
How far have you gotten with
No,
it?
no. Just a tiny piece. I've been in this position for about 2 years. So to me,
30,000 is a lot of people to get to, yeah.
Yeah, 3,000. Yeah, so it's, but just starting.
The 3,000,
Yeah.
did I say? Sorry.
Yeah, just starting, that path, it's really important to start something, because you can say, oh, well, we've known for years that we needed this and nobody ever did anything. So here we are in the same situation still. So it's just important to get something started,
Yeah.
I think.
So how
Find
do
the
you
champions.
perpetuate this? I mean, do you keep on doing these special programs, or do we evolve the programs into other programs as well?
Well, my goal is to get the champions on board who are in the different programs. And then
What's the champion?
to somebody who's a staff member who sort of understands the need to see a bigger picture and ways to get out, really not think outside the box, but also step outside the cubicle, kind of, and look at the things that are going on in the community, who's doing what, really get.
The ones who have the concept right
Yeah.
about treating everyone as a customer.
That and getting outside of the office to see what sort of programs are going on in the community, what kind of issues. A lot of people won't necessarily approach the Department of Health to say something, but if you go to them and you just have a conversation sometimes,
You learn.
you'll learn. Like when the public health nurses were on.
I was going to mention that very one. Those guys are definitely out there.
They're fabulous.
And they're so
wonderful.
caring about
Yeah.
the people they do. And talk about treating people as customers, absolutely.
And they go out to them. It's not, like, come
Right.
into this big government building and
Right,
open your
right.
heart.
That's important to get out. yeah.
To feel safe, feel comfortable. So I think that's one of the things we're working on. And again, I'm looking at other partners out there in the community. I think it's really important to find other messengers who can help spread our messages. Our messages are great. You know, they're about prevention and taking care of yourself.
Have a
and
better life, all that.
Yeah, but sometimes when they're couched in, you know, very scientific methods or very bureaucratic speak or whatever, it doesn't always communicate, even though it's something that people would really be interested in, enjoy.
Yeah.
So I try and find like community partners who can help us with that message. And for example, we were working on smoke-free beaches and got Surfrider involved.
And they took some movies, you mean?
Well, they're surfers, you know, they're cool guys.
Yeah,
and so it's they're better communicators than somebody saying, hi, I'm from the Department of Health. You know, they would like, a lot of people connect to them more.
Yeah.
And so they helped with the messaging, and it was great. There was a different kind of people who responded to them. So you want to increase your audience, but you need different messengers who will be able to connect.
You have to interpolate. You
Yeah.
have to have an intermediary interpolating for you.
Yeah.
Well, is this being done everywhere, or is this something you thought of?
What's that?
This intermediary, the Surfriders example.
Oh, there's other people that are doing really cool things with other.
Yeah.
But it is different. You know, it is finding people that you're not usually talking to, or when the partners. But again, it's like people are excited to work with us.
Yeah.
You know, they're very interested in helping us with our message because it is, you know, Surfrider is very interested in the environmental health of Hawaii, which is one of our programs. And so, you know, when we can combine forces on that, it just makes us stronger.
Okay, give me more examples of programs that you like.
Okay. You mean working with community partners? Do we have, can I talk about?
Oh, movie. Let's do a movie. Let's have a break and then do a movie.
Okay, are we at break time?
We are at break time, and
Okay.
we're going to do a movie. That's Maile Sakamoto. She's in the State Department of Health. We're talking about performance improvement management with her, and we're talking about reaching in and out at the Department of Health. We'll take a short break, and we'll come back. You will see.
This is Alice Lee Hagan, host of ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My show here at ThinkTech Hawaii is every Thursday from 3 to 4 in the afternoon. I bring in interesting guests from Hawaii, the mainland, and hopefully international guests in the future. Do join us on Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. Aloha.
I do. I only do.
Ted Ralston, folks, host of our show at ThinkTech Hawaii called Where the Road Leads, where we talk about technology influencing the future of Hawaii. Technology, of course, is the art of solving problems. We always bring in interesting and informed guests who can see from different perspectives and different points of view how that future might unfold and how technology can assist us in getting there. So once again, join us 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock on Fridays. Ted Ralston, your host. And please, if you have ideas that you'd like us to address on this show or folks who you think should be on it, let us know.
Aloha, I'm Keli'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute and host on Hanakako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii broadcast network. Hanakako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Hanakako. Every week, we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to ThinkTech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Hanakako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
We're back. We're live with Maile Sakamoto, Performance Improvement Manager at the State Department of Health. And we have a nice video in store for you, but let Maile tell you what it is.
Okay, well, one of the partnerships that we have is with the Honolulu Theater for Youth. And I'm really proud of this partnership because I think it's a very creative way of getting messages out and also working with a partner who has access to all these schools, all these kids, teachers. And instead of us, you know, I'm a office of one, I'm program of one, that I can work with somebody like this, and they have like such great outreach. And plus, they're very creative. They're incredibly creative. So it started working with them with environmental health, and we started doing these little things called playlets that were like live action PSAs
Oh, great, yeah,
before the shows.
A few minutes long,
Yeah,
okay.
And they would talk about, you know, eating healthy, or they would talk about emergency preparedness or whatever. And so they did one that was a whole show about eating local. And then next season, they're going to do one about water in Hawaii, which I really think is really great, because it's going to go to, I think, upper and lower elementary schools across the state.
You know, kids remember this for their whole lives. They're so impressionable about these things.
They do, and what's great is that they use music sometimes. They have these great costumes, and music has a way of really sticking in your head. So we did one with them about when we had the West Nile virus scare, and they did a song called Fight the Bite.
Fight the Bite.
And all the kids were coming out of the theater singing Fight the Bite. You know, it was really great. So the one that I brought here was done with our disease outbreak folks, and it was about washing your hands. And they were doing a Bollywood Robin Hood, and so they did this wash your hands message Bollywood style.
Okay, here we go. So describe it to us, Maile, as it goes.
So, well, again, it's this whole Bollywood style, and they use the movements as a way, and the song about wash your hands. And it's really great when you watch the kids in the theater too, because they're all like doing these movements, and they're all, you know, this is how you wash your hands. And the music is fantastic.
I hope we can hear some of that music too. Okay. Perfect. You can imagine this, the music and the scenes and all the fun of it.
Yeah.
Leave a big impression on a kid.
Yeah.
He'll go home and wash his hand 10 times, you know.
So it doesn't have to be like this really kind of dry message.
Yeah.
You know, it can be something like this that would really
all positive.
resonate.
Under the fingernails too. Okay, well that's one. Did you think that up?
Well, I had worked with, I don't know if you remember Elisa Matsumoto, but she did
Yes,
the Pigeon Fairy
she
Tales.
died, yeah. She was really a really talented young
So I
woman.
had been at the Department of Land and Natural Resources. I had been working there before Department of Health. And I noticed they would always be complaining that, oh, you know, nobody cares about these messages. Nobody cares. And I'd say, well, you know, have you tried saying them in a way that anybody can understand? And so I'm a good friend of Lisa's cousin, who's a set designer and an artist. And so they said, well, let's try doing a little show about rainforest issues. They were doing things in the schools. And so they did one called Voices of the Rainforest. And teachers just, they had like 25,000 kids that they performed to that first year, because everybody wanted this information. They just needed it in a way that they could understand and wasn't a total downer, you know, that it was, could be fun and interesting, and just sort of get your curiosity up about what is this. So they had great, again, music, wonderful puppets, a lot of color, and again, they could go reach out. And they can do messages that sometimes people get very upset with government about saying, but they could, you know, deliver a message saying, you know, it's not the pig's fault that it's causing all this destruction. It's just that it's in this place where it wasn't really meant to be. And so it's just doing what a pig does. So it's really not making anybody a bad guy. But.
We made a movie about a play that Hank Rogers and Blue Planet financed a few years ago, called Reuse, Recycle, and something else. And it was for kids.
Reduce, recycle.
Was it?
Reduce,
Reduce, Reuse, Recycle.
recycle.
It's an interesting name for a play. And this was calculated for young kids in grade school. And it was in St. Anthony's, the Honolulu Theater for Youth, right around the corner.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's
And gee whiz, I went to film that and I fell in love with it. And it was just exactly what you're talking about. It was high principle, taken to a level that every kid could relate to, with lots of music and really talented, fun actors delivering the message. When they walked out of the theater, they were singing the song. When they went home, they were telling their parents what to do.
Exactly. I remember one of the information people over at the Waikiki Aquarium said that she had this group of kids. They were like kindergartners from Kalihi or something, and this kid was saying, "No, be careful that you don't take this size fish and that you don't overfish." And she thought, where are they getting this information from? And it was from
so authoritative and everything.
Yeah. So it really sticks with them. And I said, these kids, time passes quickly, and they're going to, the adults are going to know about this stuff.
But you have to see it into the future. You can't. They're not going to be citizens for 10 years anyway, and so you have to be patient about having that have an effect on public opinion. But it is a very worthy investment.
Yeah, and these messengers, again, another partner on this water show that we're going to be doing with Honolulu Theater for Youth is Jack Johnson and his Kokua Foundation.
How does that work?
Jack Johnson, what a wonderful messenger.
Yeah.
And we're so lucky because we do have such giving people in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And so for some of the eating well things, our chefs are some of the most charismatic and generous people around.
Yeah.
And they do great things to help us out with some of the messages too.
You're building better citizens. You're building a better electorate, if you will.
Yeah, and it's all, it's not just, you have to be in public health. It's like public health affects everyone.
Yeah.
It's like such a broad topic, and so everybody is touched by it.
Yes.
And so they can be involved in it in some way. It doesn't have to be that, you have a science degree or a master's in public health or whatever. You can be anybody.
And just talk to the kids. It's a communication thing.
Yeah, you can say, I'm going to lead a hike. I'm going to get you out of your house and away from your computer, and let's go take a walk.
Take you to a public space.
Take you to a public space. Have a nice public space, have good hiking trails, have...
What price picnic?
Yeah. But again, we're so lucky but we have to realize that we can destroy this. So we have, a beautiful geography here. We have wonderful people, but we shouldn't take that for granted. We've been very lucky not to get some of the diseases that they've had on the mainland or in other parts of the world. So, that takes a
You're
little
so
bit of
passionate and creative about this. I mean, I know your footprint is all over it, but how do you get from geography to the fine arts to pottery to this? What makes you so passionate about it, Maile?
I like puzzles, I think. I like being able to see where something can be done and all the opportunities. I like just connecting dots and seeing how the opportunities can be.
Well, have you seen it come home? I mean, aside from the kids responding, which I mean is really wonderful all in itself, have you seen it come? Have you seen public opinion shift in the last, say, I don't know, however long you've been watching?
Well, I'm still working on public health, but I will talk about another program. When I was at Land and Natural Resources, and Mike Wilson was the chairman, and he said, I would like this Youth Conservation Corps program started up, and I would like it in 4 months. And Maile, can you do this?
Sure you can.
So I cobbled something together, and I was, beating the bushes trying to find kids to apply, and I was very lucky that I got some wonderful people, kids to apply, and they took the next step. They went to school, they got their degrees in natural resources. Now the person who's running the program is my former student.
Oh, good.
And he's taken it just, John Leong, I don't know if you know him, but from Kupu, Hawaii. And he's taken it, just grown it tremendously. And so it's really reached out to so many more kids, and it's fabulous. So again, it's like, that first couple of years is pretty hard. But there was...
But there is gratification here.
Yes,
There
and
is
it
a
can
connection,
happen.
yeah.
You see, I know that it can happen from that program. And now there's kids in the profession who went through that program.
Yeah.
And they understand about partnerships. And they understand about how the legislature works.
So you're proliferating it that way.
So that's how, that's how it happens.
So it's changing. But how do you, looking in the future for a moment, especially with regard to the grant you're operating under now, the short-term grant you're operating under now, how is this going to work? Not only for the Department of Health, but for other state agencies that want to do this kind of outreach that you're talking about. It's really important what you're doing.
It is important, and it does get irritating. I know that they would always say, oh, outreach and education is the most important thing, Maile, but here's $5,000, go for it.
Right. Have a nice day.
Yeah. So it's like, I think that they need to start taking it seriously.
Yeah.
This
So,
is important.
What do you recommend? I'm making you governor for a moment, okay? And I'm in charge of the whole enchilada, and I give you, what do we have? $12 billion budget. What do you do? Tell me what your steps would be.
I think I would try and find some of the champions in each of the departments, people that were interested in doing something different and thinking differently, and pull them together and just say, how can we sort of infiltrate back into these departments and bring in new ideas and really break down the walls? Because not only within Department of Health, but within other departments, there's so much crossover these days. And so I don't think that we can continue to stay in those silos.
But there's another element too. I just thought of this. Is if you have these kids growing up more sophisticated about issues of environment, issues of, the meeting of the sociology and the science, the physical sciences, you have as I said before, you have a better electorate, a better democracy. And so, and you have the ability to actually create a diversified economy, because if everybody is into this and doing it, there are businesses involved. And now you have a different kind of state. You have a state where people are willing to invest their time and energy into activities that benefit the common good.
Yeah.
Okay, your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think it is that respecting the skills of other people. I don't have a very good business sense, but I do have this creative sense. But it is very important to have business people around. It is very important to have the science side of it. It's very important. So all these different skills need to be appreciated and valued. And so I think Robbie Alm wrote this book about the
Leadership.
Yeah, and it's really great. He does talk about the need to go out and leave your little cubicle, your little protected world, and see what else is out there, and see, because so many people have so much to offer.
Yeah, when you say out there, do you mean out there here, out there, or out there, way out there?
All out there's. It can be your small little circle, or it can be the ones that grow out, because there's always somebody there.
So let's talk about the kid who you want to outreach to. And you want to teach him about the physical environment. You want to teach him about, living well and living healthy in the 21st century. And he comes to you and he says, Maile, thank you for all that, but I just graduated high school. I'm thinking about college. Or maybe I'm finished college and I'm thinking about graduate, whatever, in that whole continuum of time of the awakening, if you will, the intellectual awakening. What's your advice to him? Should he stay here at home? Should he work on the local community, the horizontal development of the common good, or should he travel and bring it back? What is your advice to him?
Being a geographer, I always recommend travel, and that you can always come back. But I think it's like leaving your cubicle and looking at other things. You go out from Hawaii and you see how other people deal with things. Sometimes you see a situation that you think, boy, I'm glad we don't have that. I'm glad that we have good water, or that we have plentiful water, or I'm glad that we don't have these diseases. But then you sort of appreciate what Hawaii has to offer, but also how you can fit in to kind of help it and help keep it that way.
Yeah, it's a great challenge.
It's a huge challenge, but I think people are up to it.
Yeah.
It's just presenting the
with your help,
opportunities.
they'll be, Now I understand, that the reason I like artists and people in the arts is because at the core, they're kind. That's the way it works. I'm not sure what the nexus is, but, appreciating fine arts, appreciating color and design, and the gratification of human needs, it's an expression of kindness. That's why I like every artist I ever met.
Wonderful. Yeah, you married one apparently. So
Oh, she's a potter anyway. Maile Sakamoto, a performance improvement manager and many other things at Hawaii's State Department of Health, talking about reaching in. We heard about that, and reaching out at the Department of Health. And we'll have lots more from Maile directly and through the guests that she provides to us from the Department of Health. Thank you so much.
Thank you.